What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. It's Thursday, time to go game by game, talk about all the players I'd be starting and sitting this week. First up, tonight's game, Vikings at Chargers, 44.5-point total. Chargers, 3.5-point home favorites. For the Vikings side, Wentz going to get another start, which is probably a benefit to the skill players. We sort of don't know. We haven't seen enough of McCarthy, but I would guess it's a benefit when Wentz is starting. Chargers, negative matchup for all positions. Only thing they boost is yards per carry to running backs, but they're pretty solid at limiting everything else. And it's not like every running back that walks in, plays the Chargers, goes for 150 yards and 2 scores. I think that Wentz looks fine, but even with 6 teams on bye this week, he's only in that quarterback like 14-15 range right now. So fine to stream. Not one that I'm overly excited to play. We also consider sometimes we really like the Vikings because their coaching staff is great, right? And they put together a great game plan. Well, on a short week, you have less time to do that. So maybe that mitigates some of that bonus there. So once again, okay, it's going to come down to touchdown randomness. He benefits a little bit more if Aaron Jones is active, just another running back that he can throw to out of the backfield. That's just going to help elevate his floor. And if they do get into a trailing script, they got Jefferson, they got Addison, they've got a great team. So again, I think it's fine to play him, but it's not like he projects a top 10 quarterback this week. I am right now projecting Aaron Jones to be active. If he is inactive, definitely play Mason, and then you're starting Jefferson and Addison either way. If Aaron Jones does play, if he is active, right now I have Mason as my running back 23, Aaron Jones as the running back 27. I think that they would like semi-split, but in the first game back, I don't know that I'd trust Aaron Jones. I don't think they would give him a very large share of the carries. He'd probably get a couple of targets, but it wouldn't be enough for me to say he's definitely like a locked and loaded running back 2. Someone you could play at running back 2, but I wouldn't think he could project as like a top 20 running back or anything like that. And then obviously him coming in there is just going to limit the upside for Jordan Mason. So we'll see what happens. I'll adjust the rankings accordingly. But again, definitely play Mason if Aaron Jones is out. But Mason is only like a low-end running back 2 if Aaron Jones is going to play. And then again, obviously play Jefferson, play Addison. Hawkinson right now is my tight end 16. There's not a whole lot separating the tight end like 9 and 16 or 17 this week. So basically viewing all of them as viable to stream. It was nice seeing the targets return last week, but the ADOT is super low. And when you consider they've got, Jefferson and Addison healthy, this offense isn't the juggernaut it used to be. That's just why he's not projecting as well as he used to. As for the Chargers side, pretty much start everyone. I know that seems wild to say against the Vikings, and I can promise you someone on this offense is going to disappoint, but it looks like Haskins is going to be out, and so Vidal set up for really strong usage. And then when you look at the wide receivers, that wide receiver room is seeing the most volume of any wide receiver room in the league. It should be a relatively high-scoring game, at least a competitive game overall, so we're not expecting the Chargers to get up, to lean on Vidal for 25, 30 rush attempts. They're going to have to throw the ball. It's unlikely Vidal has 150 yards and multiple scores. So these wide receivers are going to have to get going. Again, not a lock that they're going to throw the ball 50 times again. Not a lock that, all 3 of these guys have good games, but the ceiling case for all 3 of them is immense. They're all going to project for 6.5 to 9 targets. They are all wide receiver 2s this week. The most difficult decision I think a lot of you will be in is with Gadsden, kind of what to do with him tonight. I have him and Fannin, and I still don't know what I'm doing just yet. My take is that the kid is coming off the 3rd or 4th most receiving yards ever for rookie tight end, and the matchup does actually favor tight ends over wide receivers. We also know, again, the Vikings can easily put up points, especially if they get Aaron Jones back in this game. This is a good offense. They could score into the upper 20s. And while the Chargers are favorites, it's not by very much. So you could easily see the Vikings pull ahead and the Chargers, play behind and have to throw the ball a lot. So what I think I'm going to do is probably play Gadsden and then just figure it out from there. I will gain information. If Gadsden has a really bad game, I will know that, I'm coming in under projection right now. Maybe I have to play someone in the flex spot, wide receiver 2, running back 2, that has a little bit more ceiling because I see what happened to my tight end. I know what to do there. If Gaskin goes out there, has like 7 for 70 in a score, well, now I can play it a little bit safer at those positions, knowing that I've over exceeded expectation at tight end. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But again, not 100% locked in. And I know a lot of you have that decision. He's basically like a he's probably like a more of a low end tight end one this week, but has the upside that we just saw of over 160 receiving yards. So fully viable to use him. And then Herbert, definitely play him. He's going to throw the ball a ton. Quarterback 6 right now. I wouldn't bench him unless you have like a really, really good option. Like you have like Mahomes or you have like Daniel Jones. I might prefer over him this week. But for most quarterbacks, I'm playing Herbert over them. No international game this week. So we're going to kick off 1 p.m. Eastern. So those of you on the West Coast can sleep in a little bit on Sunday. We're going to have Jets at Bengals first game. 44.5 point total. Bengals 6.5 point home favorites. For the Jets side, they're rocking with Ty Gott at quarterback again. I highly doubt Garrett Wilson's going to play, so not good. And I know the matchup is obviously great against a very mediocre Bengals defense, but truly the only 2 good players they have are Breece Hall and Mason Taylor, and they're probably the only 2 you can really consider. My lean is to not play Mason Taylor, though, but I will say the Bengals are the best matchup for tight end targets. I just don't trust the offense. Like, I know that it's a good matchup. I know that if Tyrod throws for like 220, 230 yards, it's pretty likely that one of like Josh Reynolds or Mason Taylor has a relatively okay day. There are just so many options basically to stream at tight end that I just don't think Mason Taylor is a strong enough option amongst them. There's a very real chance the Jets score like 0 or 1 touchdowns. And so it's just not an offense I want to attack. So you're probably starting Breece as like a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2 in a very, very deep league. Maybe you can go to Josh Reynolds because he had good usage last week in the flex spot. And in a deep league, again, you could go to Mason Taylor. Just none of them are that good of options this week. Then for the Bengals, just play their studs. The Jets are technically a bad matchup for running backs and receivers, but this Bengals offense is just so condensed that volume's going to win out. We also know Sauce Gardner probably not going to play this week. I don't think it's locked in, but I don't think he's going to play. So you don't even have that concern for the Bengals. Like Burrow's just going to hyper focus again on Jamar Chase, on T. Higgins. They're probably going to be successful, and that's a benefit also to Chase Brown if this offense can gain a lead, which they have not been able to do this season. Even in the game they won last week, it was by like 2 points. It was very close. If they can get up on the Jets, which I think they're going to do, and they can sustain a 7, 10, 13-point lead, you're going to get more rush attempts, more volume, more potential for touchdowns as well if they're getting short fields for Chase Brown. So I think you're playing Chase Brown as a mid-range running back too, but I understand that people are not exactly pumped to play him, but it should be the best game script he's had, and he looked very good last week. Decent matchup, but like he looked pretty good, so I don't know. I would play him at running back too. And then Flacco is fine. Of course, understand that when you're projecting someone for 4 rushing yards at quarterback, you know, you got to have the touchdowns. And while the touchdowns could be there, they're random. If they happen to like finally not throw for all of their touchdowns and they run them in, and maybe they even go run heavy in the second half, if they're winning, you could see Flacco throw for 220 yards and a touchdown, still have Chase and Higgins have pretty good days because they're getting all of it, right? They're getting all of that volume, mixing in a little bit with the running backs, but then Flacco with 0 rushing yards would not score very many points. So the floor is low. The ceiling's not that crazy high. I don't think Flacco's going to go out there and throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, but he's still going to project as the quarterback 16 right now. I have him for the 3rd most passing touchdowns on the week, though, so that kind of like shows you something, right? I think he's going to be amongst the league leaders in expectation for passing touchdowns, but with 4 projected rushing yards, the floor is pretty low, and that kind of brings down the projection. Up next, we've got Bills at Panthers, 46.5 point total. Bills 7.5 point road favorites. For the Bills, Allen, Cook, obvious must starts. And early in the week, Kincaid is projecting really, really well, projecting honestly as a must start. It's probably more so a function of like 6 teams being on bye. That's giving you 6, tight ends on starting teams that you're not able to play this week. And so even if someone normally projects as a fringe option, maybe that brings them up closer to must-start territory. But Kincaid is projecting as a mid-range tight end 1. The issue with him has always been like the efficiency, being like he's got such a low ADOT, doesn't have a high enough catch rate to make up for the low ADOT, and then he had no role in the red zone. Well, this season, the ADOT's increased, and he's actually got a strong role in the red zone. So decent upside, which again, that's been the reason Kincaid hasn't been that great of a play, because even when he ran into high volume, it was like 5 for 50, no touchdowns. And those were his like good games. Well, now if he's got 5 receptions, it might go for like 60 or 70 yards. It might also come with a touchdown. And so because he has that upside more, again, I think you're putting him into your starting lineup. Again, if he plays, he was out last week, banged up a little bit. I think he's going to play this week, but obviously don't play him if he's not out there. Fringe players are the wide receivers on this offense. And even this week, so you think again, 6 teams on bye, a lot of options off the board for you. Even this week, they're only projecting Shakir and Keon Coleman in that like wide receiver 27 to 35 range. So flex viable. Sometimes you prefer a running back over a wide receiver in that 27 to 35 range. Definitely not must starts. I would say, as always, Shakir's a safer bet for like baseline production. So if you did have 2 of them, you were the favorite, you'd lean Shakir because you're expecting, a higher floor from him. If you were a big time underdog, you'd throw Keon in there because he's more likely to have that ceiling game, hit for like 2 big plays, a 60-yard touchdown, something like that. But again, I don't think either needs to be in your starting lineup as more than just like a last guy in. Then for the Panthers side, very annoying to see them go to a 50-50 split with Rico and Chuba. Hopefully they realize at some point that like Rico's just been so much better than Chuba this season. Hopefully it ends up being like a 65-35 split. For now though, you have to project it much closer because even last week, coming off injury, they basically were in a 50-50 split. And it's crazy because he's coming off like 2 200-yard games. In the actual game last week, Rico was clearly playing better than Chuba, and they still just wanted to go to a 50-50 split. So I'm ranking Rico higher because he's better, and I do think that he'll, on average, get a little bit more volume, but it's not by very much. He's a low-end running back too. Chuba is flex viable. You can definitely play both of them. Teams prefer to attack Buffalo on the ground. We'll see if they fix that. You sometimes get a little bit hesitant when teams come off bye because you don't think Buffalo in the bye is like, okay, everyone is running on us. Let's figure out a way to stop that. So you hesitate sometimes saying like, oh, it's definitely going to continue. We don't know that. They may have fixed it over the bye week, so we'll see. But you'd think that's how they attack. Like the saving grace of the Panthers offense this season has been their ground game. And so when it also matches up with the weakness of the opposing defense, at least from what we've seen thus far, you'd think they run the ball a decent amount. So I wouldn't be shocked to see either Rico or Chuba have a good game. I wouldn't be shocked to see both of them have, 50 to 70 yards, like fall in that range, for one of them to score a touchdown and for like both of them to be viable in your starting lineups. But yeah, the issue is basically Buffalo's also really good on offense and they're coming off bye. And so what if Buffalo just like gets up by 17 points? Well, that's not a game script either one of these running backs is going to excel in. Beyond the running backs, only player you're really considering is Ted McMillan. I think you're playing him no matter what the quarterback situation is. So I also don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be right now, but seemed like Bryce Young was not going to play. Then he started like practicing this week. So we'll see what happens. I really just don't think it matters. Like I think Andy Dalton and Bryce Young are basically even. You probably prefer Andy Dalton by a little bit, but I don't think it matters that much. They're probably relatively similar in skill. So if you were super desperate in a very deep league and you're like, man, I need something, Leggett, Coker, if Carolina's going to fall behind, especially again, if Dalton ends up being quarterback and we can project a little bit more of a passive game script, neither are going to project inside my top 40 wide receivers, but both could have good games. I think either way, get Tet into the starting lineup this week. Next up, we've got 49ers at Texans, 41.5 point total. Texans, 1.5 point home favorites. Surprising? I don't know. I feel like the 49ers are a better team, but my model agrees. My model is in love with the Texans. Again, I don't understand it. I think betting models, betting industry just likes how good the Texans defense is. I think that's what it comes down to. But personally, I just feel like the 49ers are better, but they're also banged up. I don't think Pearsall is going to play again this week. My guess is that they also don't have Brock Purdy. And so, of course, at full health, the 49ers would be favored. But again, they are slight road underdogs this week. But again, yeah, don't think we're going to have Pearsall. Little concerning because they seemed optimistic that he would practice last week, which was like, okay, if they're optimistic he practiced last week, maybe he plays last week and definitely plays this week. But now he's like not even practicing this week. So it's concerning. I haven't seen the report on Thursday, but through Wednesday, he hasn't practiced. So I don't think he's going to play. Brutal getting a 0 from Kittle last week, but I just don't know that there's a world where you bench Kittle, like unless you have another top 5 tight end, which is relatively unlikely. Even if you picked up Gadsden, you picked up Fannin, like these really good options, I think you still just got to start Kittle over them. It's also National Tight Ends Day. If anyone is going to score a touchdown on National Tight Ends Day, it's George Kittle. So again, play him, play McCaffrey. Juwan and Bourne are fringe flex plays. Again, I think they're going to give Purdy one more week. It's a concerning injury for him and just like the setback risk. One wrong move can set him back and put him back weeks. And so I think they give him one more week to rest and we get Mac Jones. So maybe that benefits Bourne, but it didn't last week. They're both going to project in that like wide receiver 36 to 40 range. It's not an awful range to play as like a wide receiver 3, but you kind of don't want to be starting in like a 12-team league, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. You kind of don't want to be starting like the 38th best wide receiver in the flex spot. But again, I understand it's a thin week. The Texans do, again, have a very, very strong defense. So I don't want to play Bourne. I don't want to play Juwan this week. On the Texans side, I doubt Nico plays. He had a concussion. Usually players miss a week, and it came on Monday night, so it's one less day to recover. Also seems like Christian Kirk is going to miss this game as well. Not great, right? And again, that's why I don't fully understand why the Texans are favorites in this one. I know they're home, but if you're not going to have Nico or Christian Kirk, you'd think that frees up a ton of targets and a ton of routes for these rookie wide receivers. But for some reason, they seem intent on running like Xavier Hutchinson and Braxton Berrios out there for wind sprints. These two are not giving you anything, so you might as well develop these guys. And like Jalen Noel looked great last week. Not like a superstar wide receiver, but he looked way better than the other guys that are out there. So I don't know why Jalen Noel's not playing every snap, or at least every snap in 11 personnel. My gut says he'll see an expanded role if they know Nico is out, Kirk is out. They know that all week and they can implement him into the game plan. But at the end of the day, don't know if you can really trust any of these guys. If you are looking to a Texans wide receiver, though, Noel would be the guy I would want. At tight end, Dalton Schultz, actually a pretty strong streaming option. He's in line for a ton of dump offs. I don't know that he's going to have a high yards per reception, but he could rack up 7 catches for 70 yards. Maybe he falls into the end zone. Matchup is pretty neutral against the 49ers for tight ends. Right now, he's projecting in that like 11 to 13, 14 range. If you need a spot start, like that's not a bad range to be in for a tight end. Then with the running backs, obviously, it was nice seeing Woody Marks get touches last week, but until they feature him in a neutral game script, I'm not locked in on playing him. He had a lot more usage than Chubb last week, but that game got out of hand pretty quickly, so they kind of had to go away from Nick Chubb. That's going to happen whenever they get down by like 10 or more points. You're not going to see Nick Chubb very much. If this game stays close, which again, Vegas is projecting with Houston being favored, then I'm worried that Chubb and Marks can go back to kind of splitting drives, which kind of nukes both their values because neither are going to be efficient on the ground. If you also have like a Goomba Wale stepping in for some 3rd and longs, that also hurts Woody Marks. So ideally you're not playing them, but of course, like you still prefer Woody Marks. He can actually catch a couple passes. You prefer him over Nick Chubb. And there's no way I would start CJ Stroud without Nico Collins and probably without Christian Kirk as well. Next up, Giants at Eagles, 43.5 point total. Eagles, 7.5 point home favorites. For the Giants, you're looking at their core, right? Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbu, Wan'Dale Robinson. You're not really expanding beyond that. Dart far exceeded all expectations thus far, and given his mobility, he makes for a strong streaming option basically every week. He's been the quarterback 11, 16, 3, and 3 in his 4 starts. And the fact that he's been the quarterback 3 in back-to-back weeks against the Eagles, the matchup he's in right now, and the Broncos is really, really impressive. And it's even more impressive when you consider they don't have neighbors. Like, look at the lack of talent at wide receiver in New York, and he's still been the quarterback 3-3 against the Eagles and the Broncos back-to-back. He looks phenomenal. Again, it's very sad thinking about how good this could have looked, how good of a season Neighbors could have had. Like, unfortunate the injury there, but long-term upside is awesome. So, again, I think you're probably rolling with those 3. I know Wan'Dale will be more on the fringes in people's minds, but he's out there every snap. He's got 7, 7, and 12 targets in their last 3 weeks. It's a projected trailing game script. I mean, he should rack up 5 to 7 receptions. I suppose he's better in full PPR because he just fits that format better. He's not as likely to score a touchdown when anyone racking up, 6, 7 receptions in a game. I don't even care how much they go for. Like, that is viable to start in a full PPR format. But yeah, even in half PPR, he projects pretty well this week because of the just immense target share. And then I'm not really on Theo Johnson. I know there's like a hype train out there for him. He has one game over 34 receiving yards, and the only reason he had that last week was because of the most fluky touchdown you've ever seen in your life, where he wasn't even the target on the play. It just bounced off people's hands and ended up for him where like a long touchdown. Like, he's not going to have any yards. You're just praying he scores a touchdown. He's going to get like 3 points if he doesn't score a touchdown. And there are a lot of other tight ends in the same boat, but they're not going to score 3 points if they don't score. So he doesn't project that well. You can't just count on a touchdown every week from Theo Johnson. Then for the Eagles, just start the studs. Hurts, Saquon, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert should all be in starting lineups. Sort of seems like every week 2 of the 5 dud, but you never know which ones. And all have a high enough ceiling where you'll be very sad if you bench them and they go off. Literally all those players, even including Saquon, can put up 150. I don't know if Dallas Goedert can do 150. We'll say the ceiling for Dallas Goedert is probably like 110 and 2. Saquon can do 150. We just saw like 180 from Devonta Smith. We saw a multi-touchdown, 100-yard game from A.J. Brown. Like, all in the range of outcomes for these guys. So even though they're randomly going to have bad games, the upside is just too high where you have to be willing to accept that and just start them every week. It was looking for a while like that was not the case. Like, it was going to be like dud, finally a good game. Now it's closer to like good game, dud, good game. And at that rate, we're going to need to be playing these guys. Next up, we've got, and there's nothing about the matchup where you're scared of it. Plus, it's also Saquon not returning, it's a home game, but playing against the Giants, always a chance he goes off in that spot. Next up, we've got a defensive battle between the Browns and the Patriots, 40.5 point total. Patriots, 7-point home favorites. For the Browns, you can only consider, not saying you have to, consider starting Judkins, Fannin, and Jeudy. The matchup is poor for all 3 of them. I would assume that Jeudy sees a lot of Christian Gonzalez. I don't know that you can bench Judkins at this point, but do not expect the same performance as last week, or expect the same performance, but like take away the touchdowns. He's talented enough to where like any matchup, he can bust off a 60 or 70-yard touchdown. He has the talent to do that. But the Patriots are a brutal matchup for running backs. In their entire history as a franchise, the longest streak to start a season without allowing a 50-yard rusher is 4 games. This season, they have not allowed a 50-yard rusher through week 7. That's not great for Judkins, right? If every single time the opponents are not getting anyone to hit 50 rushing yards, that's a difficult spot. It's also like likely, they're 7-point underdogs. It is likely that the Browns are losing and end up losing this game, and Judkins does not play as much when they lose. So much better spot last week. This week, not looking great for Judkins, but you probably have to play him. As for Fannin, like I said before, I don't know what I'm going to end up doing. I think right now I'm leading Gadsden, but Fannin projects great. I know he had a bad game last week, 4 for 36, no touchdown. Came on 18 total pass attempts. And if Njoku is out again, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm leaning Gadsden, is like, okay, I don't know if Njoku's going to play. And maybe right now Fannin projects great, but if Njoku goes out there, well, now definitely Fannin is not going to outproject Gadsden. He's going to fall way down in the ranking. So because of that risk, I think if you're in my boat, I think I am going to end up going with Gadsden over Fannin. But if Njoku does end up being out, it's pretty likely that Fannin's going to be the leading receiver again. You could probably pencil him in for like 5 or 6 receptions. He's got upside on those receptions. He'd be used heavily in the red zone. If they're losing and they're trailing the script, he can rack up a lot of receptions. So I definitely like him this week. Not enough to say that he's like flex viable, but great play at tight end. Then for Jeudy, I just don't want to play him again. He got the tough cornerback matchup against Gonzalez. He's been horrible this season. The quarterback play is fine, but of course it's not that great, and it's not good enough to elevate Jeudy, who again has been very, very bad this season. Then for the Patriots, they also have a terrible matchup. The Browns have a great defense all around. It's amazing against the run, but they do like a good job of limiting everyone. I would not want to play either running back. If you play one, it is obviously Stevenson, but I truly would not want to play either one of their running backs. They had a good game last week, or Stevenson did, because it's the Titans, and the Titans allow a good game to every single running back that goes against them. This is just not the spot for Stevenson or Henderson to do well. Drake May is like a mid to low end quarterback 1. If you've been using him every week, there's no reason this week to not use him. So keep going there. If anything, you want him in games where maybe they have to throw the ball and, to tough run defense, so maybe they have to lean a little bit more pass heavy this week. Then Diggs, really locked in target share. No one's going to project like phenomenally because the Browns are a great defense. It's a gross game. Again, even though they are 7-point home favorites, the 40.5-point total kind of brings everything down. And the likelihood is if the Patriots get ahead and if the Browns can't do anything on offense, we're not going to see the Patriots go for 30, 40 points like they tried to do last week. So limited ceiling for everyone, which brings down projections. But I think you're playing Diggs as a wide receiver too. I think you can stream Hunter Henry. You kind of need a touchdown for that to pay off. He's in that same tight end 9 to 16 or 17 range where you're praying for a touchdown from everyone. But yeah, we're not going around and trying to play like all these different Patriots players. Start May, start Diggs, maybe go to Hunter Henry. Other than that, you can kind of avoid. Next up, we've got the Bears at the Ravens, 49.5-point total. Ravens, 7-point home favorites. Not confirmed yet if Lamar is playing. If we get that confirmation, I wouldn't be shocked to see the total jump to like 51.5. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Ravens go to like 9-point home favorites. I think the market is projecting right now that it is likely he plays, but I do not know yet if that's going to occur. For the Bears, Baltimore's really struggled on defense this season. They are coming off the bye, though. They are playing at home, so I don't think this is a spot where the Bears walk in and just rip apart the Ravens defense. They'll be a little bit more healthy. Again, teams play better at home on defense. Coming off bye, maybe they fix some things. So historically, you don't want to be targeting Baltimore when they're coming off bye. We'll just put it at that. Also, it's not like Caleb's been amazing. Since the bye, they've been a very run-heavy team. And the run game has been working out, but the passing game has been good because of coaching, because of Ben Johnson, because of play calling, and because of the talent of the skill players, not because of Caleb Williams. He's not looked that great this season. In my opinion, though, we're still looking like a good spot for the wide receivers. Baltimore's still going to be bad. They're not going to be a good defense. Even if they improve, they'll be bad. Probably trailing game script. Again, even assuming that we don't know what's happening with Lamar, they're 7-point road underdog. So Baltimore's probably going to pull ahead. We're probably going to have the Bears in a trailing script. That is good for the wide receiver. So they're in a pretty decent spot. I just don't know that it matters for DJ Moore. Like, you got to play a Dunze. I think Moore is kind of in that like 35 to 42 range for wide receiver, someone that has the talent but just kind of hasn't had the volume this season. I think that the ground game finding success is something that Ben Johnson wanted. So I think you got to play Swift at running back too. I think Monangai, if you were very desperate, you had a bunch of people on by and you're like, Nick, I just need to pray that last week was a sign of things to come. The Monangai mixes in again this week. I think you can play him. Just know that like last week they got up and it was a winning game script. This week, if they get down, you're not going to see as much Monangai, just a little bit more DeAndre Swift. So Swift, running back 2, Monangai, desperation play. Caleb, quarterback, 12 to 13 sort of range, basically a streaming option. Started Dunze, and then DJ Moore again. Flex viable, but I would say more so a desperation play. I would say one other thing is Cole Kmet might not play this week, and so maybe we get the breakout for Colson Loveland, but you can't really count on that, so I still wouldn't play Loveland, but it's a positive fact, if you have him on the bench, even stashing him. Then for the Ravens side, completely depends who we get at quarterback. If Lamar is active, you're obviously playing him, and then you're definitely playing Zay, you're playing Henry without hesitation, and maybe you can stream one of the tight ends. If Lamar is out, definitely don't stream the tight ends, and then you're still playing Henry and Zay. They're just not going to project as well. Again, in both scenarios, though, don't go to like backups on this team. Don't go to backup wide receivers. You can't play Likely yet unless he starts to break out. Don't play the tight ends if we don't get Lamar Jackson. It's Henry, it's Flowers, and we're probably not extending much past that unless it, again, is Lamar at quarterback or potentially Mark Andrews if you get Lamar returning. Final 1 o'clock game is going to be Dolphins at Falcons, 44.5-point total. Falcons, 7.5-point home favorites. For the Dolphins, they look completely lost out there last week, and I just don't see the offense getting fixed this season. With that being said, last week was an outdoor game against a very strong Cleveland defense with horrible weather conditions. So not exactly the spot that Miami has historically crushed in. They get a dome game this week. Still a good defense, but a weaker defense. This game is much more their speed. Darren Waller also on IR. That's going to condense an already very condensed target share here. Like if every single target was going to like 4 players on the team and you remove one of those players, we're looking at a very high floor and a high ceiling for these guys. So even though they were horrible last week, you're obviously playing Achane. I feel like there's no way you can bench Jalen Waddle this week. I know the offense completely fell apart, but he had 110 yards and a score 3 weeks ago, 95 yards 2 weeks ago. Those were the first 2 games without Tyreek Hill. The target share is so locked in that, like, if you're not going to get Waddle doing anything, it is because Achane had 200 yards or Malik Washington had like 10 receptions. In this spot, I just don't see how you don't play Waddle. I can see Malik Washington racking up receptions. I think last week was more so like they couldn't push the ball downfield. And I talked about Malik Washington a little bit in the summer, being like, if we got a trade, I didn't think it would be an injury, but if we got a trade for Tyreek Hill, they like Malik Washington. He could step up into that like schemed usage, low A-dot role. And last week, because they couldn't push the ball downfield, I think they had to just pepper him with targets. This week, with no weather concerns, obviously, they can push the ball a little bit more downfield. We'll see if they actually do. But it sets up where like some of that volume last week from Washington will go towards Waddle. But with that being said, he had plenty of receptions on not that many pass attempts. So if they also just throw the ball more, maybe he can have a good game. I would only use him as like a desperation play in full PPR, but you know, if you were desperate in like a 14-team full PPR league and you saw Malik Washington on free agency, he is not a bad play this week. I don't know how much you can trust the volume, but again, 8 targets on 23 pass attempts, that's not too bad. Really no one else though. You're not playing Tua. You're not playing like Nick Westbrook-Akine. You're not going to these backup tight ends. It's Achane, it's Waddle, and it's perhaps Malik Washington. On the Falcons side, obviously play Bijan and Drake London. Pitts right now is my tight end 9. He's in that same range, but at least he's leading that range amongst the tight ends. Mooney right now, wide receiver 32. He's questionable. I haven't seen too much about the injury. I'm assuming he plays. If he plays without limitation, he's not a bad play in the flex spot. I do have him in a league where I've got Puka out, I've got Marv on bye, I've got Genty on bye. I usually start 4 wide receivers, but at this point, I'm starting anyone with a pulse. I'm playing Mooney this week. But even with that being my scenario, I still feel solid about him. Wide receivers do have the worst matchup against the Dolphins. And it is possible that, Atlanta just runs for like 200 yards this week and they don't throw it. But Mooney has a really strong target share. He'll get work downfield. He'll get looks in the red zone. You can't ask for a whole lot more than that on a difficult week with a lot of teams on bye, with a deeper starting lineup. Again, we have 2 flex spots, so that's why I can start 4 wide receivers. I don't know. In a week like this, you could do a lot worse than Mooney, but confirm that he's okay to play. And then right now, I have Penix projecting as a fine play as my quarterback 13. I don't love it, though. I think there's just too much risk that they don't throw the ball that much. So because I don't trust it, I'm probably going to try and bump him down a little bit closer to like the quarterback 15 to 17 range, but we'll see. Right now, he's the quarterback 13. 4 o'clock games kick off with Bucs at Saints, 46.5 point total. Bucs 4.5 point road favorites. For the Bucs, Evans done for most of the season, it seems, at least for a chunk of time. Definitely not playing this week, of course. And then Bucky, Godwin, they've already been ruled out this week. I don't know what's in the water in Tampa Bay. Everyone is injured, but I am not drinking it. Despite the injuries, though, look at this here. Like, all these injuries as skill players, all these injuries in the offensive line, on the road, still 4.5 point favorites, projected to score 25.25 points. So this is a good spot for the healthy skill players on this team. Rachaad White, Emeka Egbuka, obvious must starts. Cade Otton, he's up to the tight end 11 right now. Baker, quarterback 7. Tez Johnson, wide receiver 29 this week. This is another game with shootout potential. It's in a dome. The Saints already play fast and lean pass heavy, but that's just going to be forced even more this week if they're trailing. And also the Bucs, we know every single season they limit running backs immensely. They force you to throw it. If that's already what the Saints were doing, we see a lot more passing. That leads to more plays on both sides. So great game script here, great potential for a lot of plays on the Bucs side. And so when in doubt, if you've got a player in this game and a player in most other games, you're probably leaning towards the player in this game. On the Saints side, as I said, Tampa Bay always forces teams away from the run, make them lean pass heavy. We also have Kendre Miller done for the season, torn ACL. I don't think they can give Devin Neal a ton of early down looks. He'll get some, but not that many. So it's going to be like a couple carries for Neal, a little bit of work for Kamara. They'll mix in Taysom Hill. But for the most part, this team is just going to drop back a ton. So I think that does benefit Kamara. The ceiling for being a running back one, or he can be a running back one, projecting as a running back one, isn't there just because of the lack of rushing. Like if he has 10 carries, it probably goes for like 35 rushing yards. And so that's not enough to put him into running back one territory, even if we expect an increase in receptions, because he's also not been as involved in the receiving game as years past, but he's still running back two. And I think you have to play Chris Olave. I don't want to say you have to play Shaheed, but right now Shaheed's my wide receiver 26 just because of this game environment being so good. If there was ever a week for Rashid Shaheed to hit, it's a week like this. They're just going to pass for too much. And honestly, I never talk about him really as a streaming option because most weeks it's much more in the fringes. But this week, Spencer Rattler, not a bad option. He's playing well enough. Like I've said, they should drop back a ton. He's probably going to finish in that quarterback like 14 to 17 range, makes him viable to stream. After all those guys, I don't think I'd start Taysom. I don't think I'd start Jawan. Are both live to score a touchdown? Yes. Honestly, I think Taysom Hill has a decent chance of scoring a touchdown this weekend. I think Jawan always has a chance to go like 6 for 60 and a touchdown, but the usage isn't strong enough for either one of them to where like I want to be playing them this week. Next up, we've got Cowboys at Broncos, very high, 50.5 point total. Broncos, 3.5 point home favorites. For the Cowboys, obviously not ideal playing at Denver, but Dak playing at MVP level, and we just know exactly where the volume is going on this team. Dak, Javonte, Lamb, Pickens, Ferguson should all be in starting lineups, and you can pretty much bench everyone else. Just given how good this Denver defense is, I don't think we can assume that all of these guys are going to play well, but on a thin week, you got a game with, even against a good defense, close spread, 50.5 point total. I just don't see how you can bench these guys. I understand that, maybe someone like George Pickens, who's a little bit more volatile at that wide receiver 2 spot, maybe he has a game where he only has like 3 for 50 or even like 2 for 40, something like that. 2 downfield hits, maybe gets a lot of pass interferences. But the upside for him to hit on 40 or 50 yard plays, the upside in the red zone is just too high in the spot where I just don't see how you bench him this week. Then for the Denver side, they get a great matchup at home against a very attackable Dallas defense. Bo Nix, Sutton, auto starts. Dobbins, a strong start as like a mid-range running back too. Franklin, flex consideration as my wide receiver 37 right now. And then Engram is honestly back in the mix as a tight end 14 right now. Engram had a really tough start to the season. He was battling through injuries. He was new to the team, but he's coming off his highest snap share of the season, his most targets as well. Has 7, 6, 6, and 8 targets over the last 4 weeks. Broncos, 5th best schedule adjusted matchup for Cowboys, 5th best schedule adjusted matchup for tight end targets. I'm sure most people have lost faith in Evan Engram, and it's not like he has a high yards per reception ceiling, so he kind of needs 5, 6, 7 receptions to finally rack up enough yardage to be worth starting, especially if he doesn't score. But he's a pretty decent streaming option this week. As for Harvey, running back 33 right now, I would prefer not to play him. Unfortunately, in that league I talked about, I do have to play him at running back 2. Not a horrible play if you consider the fact that like maybe he gets reception volume. We know that Dallas historically just allows a lot of receptions and a high like yards per reception to running backs. They just get a little bit too excited in the pass rush and they allow these screen passes to flourish. So if Sean Payton realizes that and utilizes Harvey in the screen game, then you can have a decent game. Because I don't think that Dobbins is going to excel in the receiving game. I mean, they've just completely gone away from Dobbins in the passing attack. He has 8 total receiving yards, J.K. Dobbins, 8 total receiving yards over the last 5 weeks combined. So less than 2 receiving yards per game. So they're not going him in the passing game. They're going to Harvey, but they're not going to any of the running backs at a high enough degree where you truly trust them a lot. So I'm hopeful that the matchup will kind of tilt in that direction, that we'll get some targets to these guys, but I'm not overly optimistic. So Dobbins is that play at running back 2. You probably shouldn't play Harvey, but I understand if you have to, because I have to. Final 4 o'clock game is going to be an embarrassing one between the Titans and the Colts. 47 point total. Colts 14-point home favorites. I mean, just absolutely pathetic showing expected here from the Titans. No one is overly appealing on that side, even on a thin week. I don't really love the wide receivers. Even on a thin week, with Lockett also being gone and not projecting Ridley to play, like, I suppose you could start Ellick. You could hope that DK hits for a long touchdown, but neither one of them project inside the top 40 wide receivers, even with Lockett and Ridley gone, or not gone for Ridley, but probably not playing this week. I think Pollard, Spears, you can look to these two as like running back threes. They've kind of flip-flopped in the 2 weeks that we've expected usage from Spears being back. They've kind of flip-flopped in what they do. So I actually don't even really know if they fall behind. You'd think it's Spears. That's the role that they have him on the team for. But last week it was Pollard having some of these receptions, kind of racking those up. So who knows what's going to happen in that spot, but both project in that, very, very, very low end running back 2, running back 3 range. It'd be Pollard over Spears if you had both, but 14-point road underdogs on a team projected to score less than 17 points. Not a good spot for the running backs. Likelihood is you're not playing any Titans this weekend. Then on the Colts side, I think the last time I projected, as an average projected running back to have over 125 rushing yards was back in 2022. Remember that game that Derrick Henry was facing the Texans? Everyone knew he was going to go nuclear, runs for over 200 yards. That was the last time I had a running back projected for as many rushing yards on average as Jonathan Taylor this week. He is obviously the running back 1 on the week. Behind him, it depends on the status of Josh Downs. As of right now, I don't know if he's going to play. Either way, I think you're playing Pittman, but obviously both Pittman and Tyler Warren are better plays if Josh Downs is out. And I think also if Downs is out, you could honestly play Alec Pierce in the flex spot as well. He's not like an amazing play, but if you had to find someone to get by, they're going to have the ball a ton. They're going to have touchdown upside. He has big play upside. You could play him in the flex spot. If Downs plays, don't play Alec Pierce. And maybe don't play Downs as well. Maybe in a full PPR league, it's fine. But this is not a spot for Josh Downs. Josh Downs can only be used when they're going to play a ton of 11 personnel, when they're going to throw the ball at a high rate. Pretty much every play in the second half of this game is going to be a run play or a play action with, 2 wide receivers on the field, and that's just not a spot where Downs is going to do good. So regardless, don't play Downs, but you could play Pierce if Downs were out. And then Daniel Jones is obviously a great play. The problem with some Titans players is even if they score 3 or 4 touchdowns, you better hope your guy scores a touchdown because it's likely in the second half, it's just run after run after run after run. Not necessarily all from Jonathan Taylor. Like if they get up big, they're going to rest Taylor. They're going to bring in these backup running backs. You might have Amir Abdullah have an okay game. Like if you were in a 16-team league and you were like, Nick, I don't have anyone to play at running back 2. Amir Abdullah, I don't know, maybe he could get some run in the second half of this game because they are going to be ahead. They're going to run the ball a ton. So when you think about skill players in this team, hope they hit in the first half, hope they're the ones that score the touchdown. And that's kind of the thing also with Daniel Jones. Great option. I'm playing him this week. I have Jaden Daniels in 2 of my 3 leagues. In one of them, I have Mariota as a backup. One of them, I have Daniel Jones as the backup. And I opted not to go for Mariota this week because the expectation is great, right? We're probably going to have 4 touchdowns, maybe 5, but 4 touchdowns from the Colts this weekend. If those all come through Daniel Jones, that's awesome. If half of them come through Daniel Jones, that's still great. What if they run for all of them? So there's still some variance here. There's not going to be high passing volume. So understand that it's not a lock that Pittman has an amazing day. But if they're going to score 4 touchdowns and they're going to move the ball across the field, it's pretty likely he has a good day. So not a guarantee, but I'd be starting Colts players this weekend. Sunday night game is going to be Packers at Steelers, 45.5 point total. Packers 3-point road favorites. For the Packers, Jacobs, Kraft, must starts, Jordan Love, my quarterback 10, Dobbs, lower end wide receiver 2, actually projected very well this week. And then Golden is basically a wide receiver 3. I will say I'm not expecting Wicks to play. I do think that Christian Watson could return. But if we get Wicks out and Watson out, you're probably playing Golden. You're probably playing Romeo Doubs. I think regardless, you're playing Romeo Doubs, but him and Golden will both set up very, very well in this spot. Issue is you might not know. We'll probably know for Wicks, but we might not know for Christian Watson. We might get one of those Schefter midnight tweets where we find out in this situation. But if there's no Watson and there's no Wicks, should probably play both of those wide receivers. Feels strange ranking Dobbs as a wide receiver too, but he's got 8 9 and 8 targets over the last 3 weeks. He's playing 90% of the snaps. He's been very consistent. He's got a downfield role. He's got a red zone role. He's a good wide receiver, and the matchup is totally fine. Then on the Pittsburgh side, we've got a revenge spot for Aaron Rodgers. First game against Green Bay since, of course, playing there for a very long time. I don't know how much you really want to be playing Rodgers, but I'm not going to pretend like the narrative doesn't matter. There's absolutely a chance that every time they get inside the 5-yard line, inside the 10-yard line, he is hyper-focusing on tight ends and wide receivers, making sure he throws for 3 or 4 touchdowns this week. And you don't think he's going to be extra motivated. You don't think these skill players are going to be extra motivated to play well this week. So I don't think he's a bad play. He's only the quarterback 22 right now. Maybe I bump that up to like 18 to 20. But if you were streaming and you love narratives and you think he goes out there and throws for multiple scores, he is not a bad play this weekend. The best plays on the Steelers side, though, are Warren and Metcalf. And I'd be surprised if you're benching either one of them. Warren looked fully healthy last week. He looked fantastic. He's absolutely a start this week as a running back too. Rodgers also loves his tight ends. Any of the tight ends are viable, but the problem is they're using all 3, and it's not like any of the 3 have a crazy high target share. So last week, the answer was play all of them, apparently. But moving forward, I still think Jonnu is probably the one you want, but none of them project inside the top 17 because they utilize their tight ends a ton. But when you split it amongst 3 different tight ends, you need a lot of production to actually hit here. So any one of them could score a touchdown, but your guess is as good as mine as to who's going to score that touchdown. Final game of the week, Monday Night Football, Commanders at Chiefs, unfortunately with no Jayden Daniels, 47-point total. Chiefs, massive 12.5-point home favorites. The Commanders side, it is obviously not a good start, or not a good spot. You're playing on the road. You're playing in Arrowhead. You're 12.5-point dogs. There's these unknowns surrounding Debo and McLaurin. They will practice today on Thursday, but I don't know if they're going to play. Makes it tough because they play on Monday, right? If we don't know by Sunday if either one of them is going to play, that's risky. You were in this situation last week, though, and if you added someone like Jalen Lane, you added someone like Chris Moore, and you have them, and maybe you have like McLaurin, and you wanted to risk it, I think that's fine. Take the upside shot. Say, okay, let's hope they play. If not, you at least have someone. If you don't have a backup, there is no way, unless we know for sure on Sunday, no way you can risk it and play McLaurin or Debo and hope they play. And if not, take a 0. We're not taking a 0 in our lineup this week. So watch practice reports. Look for the latest news Saturday, Sunday. Obviously, I'll adjust the rankings accordingly. If we knew by Sunday that either one of them plays, I probably would play them in the flex spot or basically, leave the flex spot open for them. But if we don't know it, again, it's just a little bit too risky. And I wouldn't play the backup. So even if we knew that Debo and McLaurin were out, again, you can play the backups if we don't know and you want to risk it, and then you stream one of them. But if we do know that both are missing, none of the backups project well enough to where I'd be like, oh, gotta play Jalen Lane in the flex. Gotta play Chris Moore in the flex. No, they're not going to project well enough. Either way, I think Zach Ertz is viable to stream. But if we knew that the wide receivers weren't there, Ertz goes from viable to stream to like a really good play at tight end. And then probably play JCM. Just don't expect that great of a game from him. Enough volume to where you're probably playing running back too. But I wouldn't imagine he has a great day. And then Mariota's fine. He's been in much better spots before. Like I said, if you don't know, it adds some upside. But if we knew Debo, we knew McLaurin were not playing, Mariota's not going to project as well. He kind of jumps from like, I would say if McLaurin and Debo play, he's in that like 10 to 12 range for quarterbacks. Mariota, if they don't play, he's closer to like 15 to 17. So up to you what you want to do there. Then for the Chiefs side, Mahomes, Rashee Rice, must starts. Pacheco, low-end running back 2. Worthy, low-end wide receiver 2. Kelsey, mid to low-end tight end 1. I would feel good about every single one of them in the starting lineup. And also, low-end running back 2 for Pacheco is assuming Kareem Hunt plays. But if he doesn't play and only Brashard Smith is the backup, you're absolutely playing Pacheco at running back 2. He'll project very, very well this week because his touchdown chances skyrocket. The odds that he just gets a couple more carries go way up, gets those short yardage things. So, yeah, he'll look fantastic this week if you don't have Kareem Hunt. And it kind of seems like Kareem Hunt's not going to play. Really, if you've got a Chiefs player and you think maybe you're starting them, play him. They might score 34, 37 points. They're projected to score 29.5 on average. They're in a great spot this week. Play these guys. They could have scored 50 against the Raiders last week. This offense looks really good. This looks like honestly the best team in the NFL right now. So be sure to check out the app Saturday, Sunday. Make sure that you have the most up-to-date rankings. You can see the timestamp when I updated them, but any update on the website is pushed to the app immediately. I'll be back tomorrow to go over my favorite underdog plays this week. That, my friends, is the end of this one, and thank you all for watching.